Kira Vance stood at the back of the training hall, watching as the instructors praised the same students they always praised. The tall ones, the strong ones, the ones whose families had served in the Galactic Defense Corps for generations. She was none of these things. She was small, even by human standards, barely reaching 5 feet 2 inches. Her arms were thin, her frame narrow, and her family was nothing special. Her father worked in the agricultural domes on Mars, and her mother ran a small repair shop on the outer ring of Station 12. They were good people, honest people, but they had no connections to anyone important. The Galactic Military Academy accepted students from all species across the known universe. There were Korathians with their 4 arms and incredible strength. There were Veloxi with their speed that made them nearly invisible when they moved. There were Drenari with their telepathic abilities and perfect strategic minds. And then there were humans. Humans were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. They were not the smartest. In the grand hierarchy of the galaxy, humanity occupied a middle position, useful but unremarkable. Most human cadets at the academy came from military families with long histories of service. They had advantages that Kira did not have. She had applied to the academy 3 times before they finally accepted her. The first 2 times, she received polite rejection letters explaining that her scores were adequate but not exceptional. The third time, she scored in the top 5% on the tactical simulations. They could not ignore that, so they let her in. But letting her in did not mean they had to notice her. Instructor Vrel, a tall Korathian with scarred blue skin and 4 powerful arms, walked among the cadets during morning training. He stopped to correct the stance of a Veloxi cadet named Cyrix. He spent 5 minutes explaining proper weapon handling to a human named Marcus Cole, whose grandfather had been a famous admiral. He walked right past Kira without even looking at her. This was not unusual. This happened every day. Kira adjusted her grip on the training rifle and continued practicing the drill. She did not need Instructor Vrel to tell her she was doing it correctly. She had studied the manuals. She had watched countless training videos. She had practiced in her small dormitory room late at night when everyone else was sleeping. She knew her form was good. She knew her movements were efficient. But knowing something and having others recognize it were 2 very different things. The morning training session ended with a sparring exercise. Cadets were paired randomly by the computer system, but somehow Kira always ended up with the same partners. The ones nobody else wanted to fight, the ones who were too aggressive or too unpredictable. Today, her partner was a Drenari named Thaxos, who had a reputation for being unnecessarily violent during sparring matches. 3 cadets had gone to the medical bay after fighting him in the past month. Thaxos stood across from her. His gray skin stretched tight over angular features. His black eyes showed no emotion, but she could feel his contempt. Drenari were telepaths, and while using their abilities during sparring was technically forbidden, they all knew the rules were rarely enforced. The match began. Thaxos moved toward her with confidence, expecting an easy victory. He was larger than her, stronger than her, and he had the advantage of being able to sense her intentions before she acted. But Kira had spent months studying Drenari fighting patterns. She knew that their telepathic advantage made them overconfident. They expected their opponents to think about what they were going to do, and then they countered those thoughts. So Kira stopped thinking. She had trained herself to act on pure instinct. When Thaxos reached for her arm, her body moved without conscious thought. She ducked under his grasp, stepped to his left side, and struck the pressure point on his lower back that would temporarily disrupt his telepathic focus. It was a move she had read about in an old human combat manual. Nobody used it anymore because everyone had forgotten that humans had developed specific techniques for fighting telepaths during the first contact wars centuries ago. Thaxos staggered. His concentration broke. For 3 seconds, he was just another fighter with no special advantage. In those 3 seconds, Kira swept his legs out from under him, pinned his primary arm, and placed her practice blade against his throat. The training hall went silent. Instructor Vrel walked over. His forearms crossed over his massive chest. He looked at Thaxos on the ground, then at Kira standing over him. His expression showed nothing. "Match ends," he said. "Reset for next pairing." That was all. No comment on her technique. No recognition of what she had accomplished. No acknowledgement that a small human girl had just defeated one of the most feared sparring partners in the academy using a combat style that nobody had seen in 300 years. Kira helped Thaxos to his feet. He pulled his arm away from her and walked to the other side of the training hall without a word. She could feel his anger even without telepathic abilities. She had embarrassed him. He would not forget that. The rest of the day followed the same pattern it always followed. Kira attended lectures on tactical theory. Sitting in the back row where the instructors never called on her, she ate lunch alone at a small table in the corner of the dining hall. She spent her afternoon in the simulation chambers, running combat scenarios that most cadets her year had not yet attempted. She scored in the 98th percentile. The system logged her results, but no one reviewed them. The instructors were too busy preparing their favored students for the annual evaluation. The annual evaluation was the most important event in any cadet's career at the academy. Graduates from across the galaxy came to watch. Military leaders and politicians attended. Promising cadets were identified and offered positions in elite units. Careers were made or ended based on performance in the evaluation. For 3 years, Kira had watched other cadets prepare for this moment with help from instructors, mentors, and family connections. She had prepared alone. This year, she would finally participate. Fourth-year cadets were required to compete in the evaluation exercises. There was no way for the academy to keep her invisible any longer. That evening, the assignment list for the evaluation was posted. Kira found her name at the very bottom, assigned to a squad of other overlooked cadets. Their team leader was a Veloxi named Chiss who had failed the leadership assessment twice. Their tactical officer was a human named Devon Park who was known more for his wealthy family than his abilities. Their communications specialist was a small alien named Bick, from a species Kira did not recognize. Bick had never spoken in any class she shared with him. The other squads were filled with the top-ranked cadets. Marcus Cole led one team, Cyrix led another. Thaxos, despite his loss that morning, led a third. These teams were expected to compete for the top positions. Kira's team was expected to fail quietly in the early rounds. She studied the evaluation scenarios that night in her dormitory. The exercises would simulate real combat situations based on historical battles. Teams would face simulated enemies in environments designed to test every aspect of military training. The scoring was based on mission completion, casualty rates, strategic decisions, and leadership effectiveness. Most teams focused on practicing standard tactics that had proven successful in past evaluations. Kira took a different approach. She pulled up records of every evaluation for the past 15 years. She analyzed which strategies succeeded and which failed. She studied the patterns in how scenarios were designed. She noticed something interesting. The evaluation designers were former military officers who had fought in specific campaigns. The scenarios they created reflected their own experiences. If she could identify which designer created which scenario, she could predict what challenges each exercise would present. By morning, she had identified 3 likely scenario designers and created tactical approaches for each of their probable exercises. She had also developed backup plans for 12 other scenario types. She downloaded her notes to a small datapad and went to meet her new squad. They gathered in Training Room 7, the smallest and least equipped training space in the academy. Chiss stood near the door, his thin body vibrating with nervous energy. Veloxi were naturally fast, but Chiss seemed to vibrate even when standing still. Devon Park sat on a bench, looking at his personal communicator and ignoring everyone else. Bick sat in the corner, his small form nearly invisible in the dim lighting. Kira stood in the center of the room and waited. Nobody spoke. "The evaluation is in 12 days, she finally said. "We need to start preparing now, if we want any chance of not finishing last." Chiss made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "What difference does it make? Look at us. They put all the rejects on one team so we can fail together without embarrassing anyone important. We only fail if we accept that we are supposed to fail," Kira said. Devon looked up from his communicator for the first time. "Easy for you to say. You have nothing to lose. Some of us have family expectations. Your family expects you to fail," Kira said calmly. "That is why you are here with us instead of on Marcus Cole's team." Devon's face turned red with anger, but he did not deny what she said. He knew it was true. "I have a plan," Kira continued. "It will require all of us to train harder than we have ever trained before. It will require us to learn new techniques and abandon strategies that have not worked. It will require us to trust each other completely. If anyone is not willing to do this, leave now. I will not waste time on people who have already given up. She waited. Nobody moved. Good, she said. Let me tell you what I have discovered about how the evaluation scenarios are designed. For the next 3 hours, Kira explained her analysis. She showed them the patterns she had identified. She outlined the strategies she had developed. She assigned each of them specific roles that maximized their individual strengths while compensating for their weaknesses. Chiss would use his speed for reconnaissance and disruption rather than direct combat. Devon would handle logistics and coordination, utilizing his natural ability to organize information. Bick, she learned, had exceptional hearing that could detect sounds far beyond the range of other species. He would serve as their early warning system, and Kira would lead them. Chiss objected to this. He was technically the assigned team leader. The evaluation rules required teams to follow their designated leadership structure. The rules require that the assigned leader give final approval for tactical decisions. Kira corrected him. They do not require the assigned leader to create those decisions. You will give the orders. I will tell you what orders to give. From the outside, it will look like you are leading. From the inside, we will know the truth. Why would you do this? Chiss asked. You could take credit for the leadership yourself. Kira thought about this question. She had asked herself the same thing many times. The honest answer was that she did not care about credit. She cared about winning. She cared about proving that the academy was wrong about her. She cared about showing everyone who had ignored her that she was more than they thought she was. But she did not say any of this. Instead, she simply said, because it gives us the best chance of success. Everything else is secondary. Training began the next day. Kira pushed her team harder than any instructor had ever pushed them. They ran simulations until their minds ached from the strain. They practiced maneuvers until their bodies memorized every movement. They studied scenarios until they could predict outcomes 3 steps ahead. On the 5th day of training, Instructor Vrel visited Training Room 7. He stood in the doorway watching them practice a complex flanking maneuver. His 4 arms hung at his sides, and his scarred face showed no expression. Cadet Vance, he said after watching for several minutes. Where did you learn the formation you are practicing? Kira stopped the exercise and turned to face him. This was the first time he had spoken directly to her in 3 years. I developed it myself, instructor, based on historical analysis of successful asymmetric combat strategies. Vrel studied her for a long moment. His black eyes revealed nothing about his thoughts. Then he simply nodded and walked away without another word. Chiss waited until the instructor was gone before speaking. That was strange. He has never visited any team in the preparation rooms before. Someone told him about what we are doing, Devon said. Maybe the monitoring systems flagged our unusual training patterns. Kira considered this possibility. The academy monitored all training activities. Her approach was significantly different from standard preparation methods. It would have stood out in any review of the data. It does not matter, she said. We continue as planned. Whatever happens in the evaluation, they cannot say we did not try. On the 8th day of training, Thaxos appeared outside Training Room 7. He did not enter. He simply stood in the corridor watching through the observation window. His gray face showed no emotion, but Kira could feel his attention focused on her like a cold weight. She ignored him and continued drilling her team. He returned on the 9th day, and the 10th. Each time, he watched without speaking. Each time, Kira felt his telepathic presence pressing against the edges of her mind. He was trying to read her strategies. He was trying to discover her plans so he could counter them in the evaluation. She had prepared for this possibility. Every training session in Training Room 7 used fake plans and decoy strategies. Her real tactics were developed late at night in her dormitory, far from any monitoring systems or telepathic observation. She let Thaxos watch. She let him think he was learning her secrets. The truth was, she was learning his. On the night before the evaluation, Kira gathered her team for a final briefing. They sat in a circle on the floor of Training Room 7, eating ration packs and reviewing their assignments. Tomorrow will be difficult, she said. The scenarios are designed to challenge the best teams in the academy. We are not considered the best. We are expected to fail, but failure is only certain if we believe it is certain. Do you believe we will fail? Chis shook his head, his body vibrating with energy that was now confidence rather than nervousness. Devon put away his communicator and looked at Kira with respect he had not shown 12 days ago. Bick made a sound that might have been agreement in his native language. Then we will not fail, Kira said. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember what we have trained for. Trust the plan. Trust each other. And do not stop fighting until the evaluation is over. They dispersed to their dormitories to rest before the competition. Kira stayed behind, sitting alone in the empty training room. She thought about her parents on Mars and Station 12. She thought about all the rejection letters she had received. She thought about every instructor who had walked past her without seeing her, every classmate who had forgotten her name, every moment when she had been told through words or silence that she was not good enough. Tomorrow, she would show them all exactly how wrong they were. The morning of the evaluation arrived with clear skies over the academy complex. Thousands of spectators filled the observation galleries surrounding the main arena. Holographic displays throughout the facility would broadcast the exercises to viewers across the galaxy. Representatives from every major military organization attended, searching for promising cadets to recruit. Kira's team assembled at Staging Area 9, the farthest point from the main viewing platforms. The placement was deliberate. Teams expected to perform poorly were positioned where their failures would be less visible to important observers. Kira noted the insult and filed it away with all the others. The first exercise was a defensive scenario. Teams had to protect a simulated civilian population from an invading force, while evacuation procedures were completed. Success was measured by civilian survival rates and team casualties. Most teams would establish fixed defensive positions and hold them until evacuation was complete. It was the standard approach taught in every tactics class. Kira had a different plan. The scenario began. Simulated enemy forces appeared on the tactical display, approaching from multiple directions. Chis immediately moved to his reconnaissance position, his veloxy speed carrying him to 3 different observation points before enemy scouts could detect him. His reports came back through the communication network, painting a picture of enemy deployment that most teams would not have until the attack was already underway. Kira analyzed the information and made her decision. The enemy was using a standard pincer formation, expecting the defending team to spread their forces across multiple defensive points. This was exactly what the scenario designers wanted. Teams that followed this expected pattern would be slowly overwhelmed, as enemy forces concentrated against their weakest positions. She gave her orders through Chis, who relayed them to the team. Instead of spreading out, they concentrated their forces at a single point. Instead of defending, they attacked. Devon coordinated the civilian evacuation from a concealed position, routing refugees through paths the enemy did not expect. Bick used his exceptional hearing to detect enemy movement before visual contact was possible, giving the team crucial seconds of advance warning. Chis used his speed to harass enemy flanks, drawing attention away from the main evacuation routes. And Kira led the direct assault against the enemy command unit. The scenario designers had not anticipated this approach. The defensive scenario was meant to test defensive capabilities. Attacking the enemy headquarters was technically possible but strategically considered foolish because it left civilians unprotected. What the designers had not considered was that eliminating enemy leadership would create confusion that protected civilians more effectively than any defensive line. Kira reached the enemy command position with 3 simulated seconds to spare before the first civilian casualty would have occurred. She neutralized the command unit using the same techniques she had used against Taxos in training. The enemy forces, suddenly leaderless, fell into disarray. The evacuation completed with 0 civilian casualties and minimal team damage. In the observation galleries, murmurs spread through the audience. The tactical displays showed what had happened, but many viewers did not understand it. This was not how the exercise was supposed to be completed. This was not how anyone had ever completed it before. Instructor Vrel watched from the faculty observation platform, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. His expression remained neutral, but his black eyes tracked Kira's movements with new interest. The second exercise began 30 minutes later. It was an assault scenario, requiring teams to capture an enemy fortification. Marcus Cole's team had completed this exercise with a time of 18 minutes and 42 seconds. Currently the best performance of the day, Sirix's team had finished in 19 minutes and 3 seconds. Thaxos's team had taken 21 minutes, but suffered the lowest casualty rate. Kira's team completed the exercise in 11 minutes and 17 seconds with 0 casualties. She had studied the fortification design for 3 nights. She had identified 17 structural weaknesses that the scenario designers had hidden throughout the facility. She had developed an approach that exploited these weaknesses in sequence, creating a chain reaction that disabled the fortification's defenses before the enemy could organize resistance. Her team moved through the exercise like water flowing through cracks in a wall, finding every gap and exploiting every flaw. The audience in the observation galleries grew louder. People were pointing at the tactical displays. Officials from military recruitment offices were sending messages back to their headquarters. Something unusual was happening at the academy evaluation, and they wanted to know more about the small human cadet leading the underdog team. By midday, Kira's team had completed 4 exercises with scores that challenged or exceeded the top teams. The accumulated point total placed them in 2nd position overall, just behind Marcus Cole's team. This was impossible. This was not supposed to happen. The reject squad, the forgotten cadets, the ones nobody expected anything from, were competing for the top position in the annual evaluation. The academy administrators called an emergency meeting during the lunch break. They reviewed the footage of Kira's team performances. They analyzed the tactical decisions she had made. They searched for rule violations or cheating. They found nothing wrong. Every action her team had taken was within the bounds of the evaluation rules. She had simply found approaches that nobody else had considered. The afternoon exercises would determine the final rankings. The remaining scenarios were the most difficult, designed to separate the good teams from the truly exceptional ones. Administrators expected that Kira's team would finally reach their limits. The morning's success, they believed, was a statistical anomaly that would correct itself. They were wrong. The 5th exercise was a survival scenario. Teams were dropped into hostile territory with minimal supplies and required to reach an extraction point while evading enemy patrols. The scenario was designed to test endurance and resourcefulness. Most teams completed it in 4 to 6 hours. Some teams failed to complete it at all. Kira's team reached the extraction point in 2 hours and 41 minutes. She had identified patterns in the enemy patrol routes that allowed her team to move through gaps in coverage that seemed impossibly small. She had calculated the exact timing required to cross each danger zone. She had trained her team to move as a single unit, each member anticipating the other's movements without communication. The 6th exercise was a command scenario. Teams had to coordinate multiple simulated units across a large battlefield while responding to rapidly changing conditions. This exercise tested leadership and decision-making under pressure. Most teams struggled to maintain control as the scenario became increasingly complex. Kira thrived in complexity. She had spent years studying chaos theory and emergent behavior in combat situations. She understood that apparent chaos often contained hidden patterns. While other teams tried to impose order on the battlefield, she let the chaos flow around her and found the currents that would carry her team to victory. Her final score in the command scenario was the highest ever recorded in the Academy's history. The evaluation ended as the sun began to set over the Academy complex. Teams gathered in the central arena for the final rankings announcement. Thousands of spectators watched from the observation galleries. Holographic cameras broadcast the ceremony across the galaxy. Military officials stood in their designated areas, already preparing recruitment offers for the top performers. The rankings appeared on the main display, starting from the bottom. Team after team was listed, their scores and positions displayed for everyone to see. The bottom third of teams showed the expected names. The middle rankings held some surprises as traditionally strong teams performed below expectations. The top 5 positions appeared. 4th place went to a team that everyone had expected to rank higher. 3rd place went to Thaxos's team, a result that clearly angered the Drenari. He had expected to finish 1st or 2nd at worst. 2nd place went to Marcus Cole's team, a respectable performance that satisfied no one on the team. They had trained their entire lives to win, not to come in 2nd. 1st place went to Team 9, the squad that had started the evaluation at the back of the staging area. The team filled with forgotten cadets and overlooked students. The team led by a small human girl who nobody had bothered to notice for 3 years. First place went to Kira Vance. The arena fell silent for a long moment. Then the whispers began. They spread through the observation galleries and across the communication networks. They reached military officials and academy administrators. They traveled along faster than light communication relays to every corner of the galaxy. Who was this human? Where had she come from? How had she done what she had done? Kira stood with her team in the center of the arena, surrounded by thousands of staring eyes and more questions than she could answer. She had spent 3 years being invisible. Now everyone could see her, and they did not know what to make of what they saw. This was only the beginning. In the days that followed, her name would spread across the galaxy. Her tactics would be studied by military academies on 100 worlds. Her story would inspire countless others who had been told they were not good enough. But in that moment, standing in the arena with her unlikely team, Kira Vance simply felt tired. She had proven what she needed to prove. She had shown the academy that they were wrong about her. She had shown herself that she was capable of more than anyone believed. Now she had to figure out what to do with the attention she had never wanted but could no longer avoid. The representatives from the elite military units were already approaching, their recruitment offers ready. The first chapter of her story was complete. The next chapter was about to begin, and it would be far more dangerous than anything she had faced in the evaluation. The recruitment offers came within hours of the evaluation ending. Military organizations from 17 different species sent representatives to meet with Kira. They offered positions in elite units, advanced training opportunities, and salaries that would have made her parents wealthy for the rest of their lives. She listened to each offer politely, asked thoughtful questions, and made no commitments. The attention felt strange, like wearing clothes that did not fit properly. For 3 years, she had learned to operate in shadows, to achieve success without recognition, to find satisfaction in her own knowledge of her abilities, rather than external validation. Now everyone wanted to talk to her, study her, understand how she had accomplished what she had accomplished. The constant attention was exhausting in ways that combat training had never been. 3 days after the evaluation, Admiral Chen Shu of the Human Defense Coalition requested a private meeting. This was unusual. Chen Shu was one of the most respected military leaders in human space. He commanded the 7th Fleet, which guarded humanity's core systems from external threats. He did not personally recruit academy graduates. He had staff for that purpose. Kira met him in a small conference room in the academy's administrative building. He was older than she expected, with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes that spoke of decades of difficult decisions. He wore his uniform without ceremony, like a tool he was accustomed to using rather than a symbol of his authority. "Cadet Vance," he said, gesturing for her to sit across from him at the simple metal table. "I watched your evaluation performance. All of it. I have watched it 3 times now, and I still do not fully understand what you did. I analyzed the scenarios and found optimal approaches," Kira said. "The methods are documented in various historical and theoretical texts. I simply applied them." "You did more than apply existing methods," Chen Shu said. "You created new ones. The approach you used in the command scenario has already been added to the tactical curriculum at 4 military academies. Your defensive assault strategy is being studied by analysts across human space. You did not just win the evaluation. You changed how people think about military tactics." Kira did not know how to respond to this. She had developed her approaches through necessity, not ambition. The academy had ignored her, so she had found her own path. The techniques she used seemed obvious to her because she had spent years studying the underlying principles. That others found them revolutionary surprised her more than her victory in the evaluation. "I did not invite you here to praise you," Chen Shu continued. "I have a proposition, something that will not appear on any official recruitment offer, something that requires a specific kind of person." He slid a datapad across the table. Kira picked it up and began reading. The document described a special operations unit that officially did not exist. It conducted missions in territory controlled by hostile species. It operated without support from regular military forces. Casualty rates were high. Success rates were higher. The unit was called the Shadow Corps. Kira had heard rumors about them during her time at the academy. Most cadets believed they were a myth, a story told to frighten new students or inspire hopeful fantasies about heroic missions. The document in her hands proved the rumors were true. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you see things that others do not see," Chenshu said. "Because you find solutions where others see only problems. Because you spent 3 years at this academy being ignored, and instead of giving up, you became something that could not be ignored. The Shadow Corps needs people who can operate without recognition, people who can succeed when the odds are against them, people who do not need approval to know their own worth." Kira read through the rest of the document. The training would take 2 years. The missions would be classified at the highest levels. She would disappear from public view, and when she emerged, she would be a different person. The skills she would learn could not be unlearned. The things she would do could not be undone. "I need time to consider this," she said. "Of course," Chen Shu replied. "But understand that this offer will not remain open indefinitely. The Shadow Corps recruits when it needs people with specific capabilities. Right now, we need someone with your capabilities. That need will not wait forever." He stood and moved toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back to face her. "One more thing, Cadet Vance. Your performance in the evaluation attracted attention beyond human space. The Drenari High Command has asked questions about you. The Korathian War Council has your name on a list that I would prefer it not be on. And there are others, from species you have probably never heard of, who have noticed what you accomplished. Whatever you decide about my offer, be careful. You are no longer invisible. That brings advantages, but it also brings dangers you are not yet prepared for." He left without another word. Kira sat alone in the conference room, staring at the data pad in her hands. The Shadow Corps, a chance to do something that mattered, something that would use her abilities fully, something that would challenge her in ways the Academy never had. It was everything she had secretly hoped for during those 3 years of being ignored. But Chen Shu's warning echoed in her mind. She was no longer invisible. That meant enemies she had not known existed were now aware of her. The galaxy had noticed Kira Vance, and not everyone who noticed her wished her well. The first attack came 4 days later. She was walking back to her dormitory after evening meal when she felt the familiar pressure of a telepathic presence against her mind. It was stronger than anything she had experienced during training with Thaxos. It was focused and hostile, probing for weaknesses in her mental defenses. She stopped walking and looked around the empty corridor. "Show yourself," she said aloud. "I know you are there." A figure emerged from the shadows at the far end of the corridor. It was not Thaxos. It was a Drenari she did not recognize, older than the cadets at the academy, with gray skin that had a slightly purple tint, suggesting high-ranking genetics. He wore civilian clothing, but he moved with military precision. "Kira Vance," he said. His voice carried the resonance of telepathic amplification, making his words seem to come from inside her head as well as from his mouth. "The human who defeated Thaxos, the human who won the evaluation, the human who thinks she is clever." "I am clever," Kira said. "What do you want?" The Drenari smiled, showing teeth that had been filed to points in the traditional warrior style. "I want you to understand your position. The Drenari hierarchy does not tolerate embarrassment. Thaxos is connected to powerful families. His failure reflects on them. They have sent me to ensure that your success does not continue. Are you going to kill me?" Kira asked. Her voice remained calm, but her body was already preparing for combat. She calculated distances, angles of attack, potential escape routes. The corridor was narrow, which limited the Drenari's movement options. There were no weapons within reach, but she could improvise with environmental objects if necessary. "Kill you?" "No, not yet. First, we will destroy everything you care about. Your reputation will be dismantled. Evidence will be created showing that you cheated in the evaluation. Your team members will be pressured to testify against you. Your parents on Mars and Station 12 will experience unfortunate accidents. By the time we are finished, you will wish we had simply killed you." He took a step toward her, his telepathic presence intensifying. She could feel him searching through her surface thoughts, looking for fears he could exploit, weaknesses he could attack. He was skilled, far more skilled than Thaxos. If she allowed him to establish a firm mental connection, she would be vulnerable. But Kira had prepared for this possibility. During her years of training, she had developed mental techniques that no instructor had taught her. She had studied ancient human meditation practices, psychological resistance methods, and the theoretical principles of telepathic defense. She had created barriers in her mind that even she could not fully understand. She let the Drenari believe he was making progress. She fed him false fears and manufactured weaknesses. She let him think he was penetrating her defenses, while she quietly prepared her counterattack. When he pushed deeper into her mind, expecting to find her core vulnerabilities, he instead found something unexpected. He found a maze of mirrors and shadows, each reflection showing a different version of Kira Vance. He found thoughts that led nowhere, and memories that dissolved when examined. He found himself lost in a mental landscape that obeyed no rules he understood. And in his confusion, Kira struck. She did not attack his body. She attacked his mind. She used the connection he had established against him, pushing through his own mental defenses while he was distracted by her maze. She found his fear, the deep terror that all Drenari kept hidden beneath their telepathic confidence. The fear of silence, the fear of being alone in their own minds without the constant presence of others. She wrapped that fear around his consciousness and squeezed. The Drenari screamed. It was not a physical sound but a telepathic cry that echoed through the corridor and probably through several nearby buildings. He collapsed to his knees, clutching his head, his eyes wide with shock and pain. Kira stood over him, breathing heavily from the effort of her counterattack. She had never used these techniques against another person before. The results were more dramatic than she had anticipated. "Tell your masters what happened here," she said. "Tell them that I am not afraid of them. Tell them that if they threaten me, or anyone I care about, I will find them, and I will show them exactly what I am capable of." She turned and walked away, leaving the Drenari writhing on the floor behind her. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was racing, but her mind was clear and focused. She had just made a powerful enemy, but she had also proven something important to herself. She could defend against attacks that most humans could not even perceive. Whatever the Drenari hierarchy sent against her, she would be ready. The next morning, she accepted Admiral Chen Shu's offer to join the Shadow Corps. The training facility was hidden in an asteroid belt on the edge of human space. There was no official designation for the location, no records of its existence in any database. The only way to reach it was aboard a specially modified ship that made multiple random jumps before arriving at the final destination. Even the recruits did not know exactly where they were. Kira arrived with 7 other recruits from various human colonies and stations. They were a diverse group, each selected for specific abilities that the Shadow Corps needed. There was a pilot named Marcus who could navigate through gravity wells that would tear most ships apart. There was a demolitions expert named Yuki who had accidentally destroyed half a space station during what was supposed to be a minor repair job. There was a linguist named Omar who could learn new languages in days and had mastered over 40 different alien communication systems. And there were others, each with talents that seemed impossible until you saw them in action. The training was unlike anything Kira had experienced at the academy. There were no lectures about tactical theory or simulations of historical battles. Instead, they learned by doing. They were dropped into hostile environments with minimal equipment and expected to survive. They were given impossible tasks with deadly consequences for failure. They were pushed beyond every limit they thought they had. Commander Elise Tanaka ran the training program. She was a small woman with graying hair and eyes that seemed to see through every lie and pretense. She had served in the Shadow Corps for 23 years and had completed missions that would become legendary if they were ever declassified. She looked at her recruits the way a sculptor looks at raw stone, seeing what they could become rather than what they currently were. "Most of you will not complete this training," she told them on the first day. "Some of you will fail and be returned to regular military service with memories of this place erased. Some of you will be injured in ways that prevent you from continuing, and some of you will die. This is not a threat. This is a statistical reality based on historical data from previous training cycles." She paused to let this information sink in. Kira noticed that several recruits were already showing signs of doubt. Omar's hands were trembling. Marcus was breathing too fast. Only Yuki seemed unaffected, probably because anyone who accidentally destroyed half a space station had already made peace with the possibility of death. The Shadow Corps exists because there are problems that cannot be solved through conventional military means, Tanaka continued. Wars that cannot be won through force alone. Enemies that cannot be defeated through direct confrontation. Situations that require precision, discretion, and capabilities that most people do not know exist. If you complete this training, you will become something more than soldiers. You will become instruments of human survival. The training began immediately. They were divided into pairs and given 48 hours to cross 100 kilometers of hostile terrain while evading sensor networks and automated defense systems. Kira was paired with Omar, the linguist. He was not physically impressive, but she quickly learned that his ability to analyze patterns extended beyond languages. He could read terrain the way most people read books, identifying paths and opportunities that others would miss. They completed the exercise in 31 hours, the fastest time of any pair. 2 pairs did not complete the exercise at all. One recruit broke his leg falling into a concealed pit. Another was captured by the automated systems and had to be extracted by training staff. They were both sent home the next day. The second week focused on infiltration techniques. They learned how to bypass security systems, forge identification documents, and assume false identities that could withstand detailed scrutiny. Kira discovered that she had a natural talent for pretending to be someone else. The years of being ignored at the academy had taught her to observe others carefully, to notice the small details of behavior and speech that defined personality. Now she used those observations to create convincing personas. Commander Tanaka noticed her ability and assigned her additional training sessions. She learned to modify her voice, her posture, her facial expressions. She learned to think like different people, to adopt their values and perspectives so completely that even telepathic interrogation could not easily distinguish the false identity from the real one. "You have potential," Tanaka told her after one particularly successful exercise. But potential is not enough. The Shadow Corps needs more than talented individuals. It needs people who can function as part of a team while operating completely alone. It needs people who can make impossible decisions under impossible pressure. "Do you understand what I am telling you?" Kira thought she understood. The Shadow Corps needed her to be both independent and connected, both capable of solo action and integrated into a larger purpose. It was a contradiction that many people could not resolve. But Kira had spent her entire life being contradictory. She had succeeded by being both invisible and exceptional. She had won by being both alone and part of a team. This was simply the next level of the same challenge. The third month of training brought her first real mission. It was classified as a training exercise, but the target was real. A Drenari intelligence post on the edge of neutral space had been gathering information about human military capabilities. The Shadow Corps needed to know what they had learned and, if possible, eliminate the threat without revealing human involvement. Kira was assigned to lead the operation. Her team consisted of Omar, Yuki, and a recruit named Chen who specialized in electronic warfare. They had 1 week to plan the mission and 3 days to execute it. The Drenari post was located on a small moon orbiting a gas giant in an uninhabited system. It was protected by automated defenses, telepathic security measures, and a small garrison of Drenari soldiers. Direct assault was impossible. Stealth insertion was extremely difficult. The only viable approach was deception. Kira developed a plan that relied on her ability to fool telepathic security. She would pose as a Drenari agent delivering routine supplies to the post. Omar would accompany her as her assistant, using his linguistic skills to handle any verbal challenges. Yuki and Chen would approach from a different direction, using the distraction of Kira's arrival to bypass the automated defenses and access the post's data systems. The plan required precise timing and complete trust among all team members. If any element failed, the entire operation would collapse. Kira spent hours reviewing every detail, considering every possibility, preparing for every contingency she could imagine. The insertion went smoothly. Their modified shuttle approached the Drenari post, transmitting valid identification codes that the Shadow Corps had obtained through sources Kira preferred not to know about. The post's sensors scanned them, found nothing suspicious, and granted landing clearance. The challenge came when Kira stepped off the shuttle and was immediately confronted by a Drenari security officer. His telepathic probe was strong and suspicious, probing her thoughts with professional thoroughness. She felt him searching for signs of deception, for any indication that she was not who she claimed to be. She let him search. She opened her mind to him, showing him exactly what he expected to see. A bored agent on a routine assignment. Frustration with bureaucratic procedures. Mild contempt for the soldiers at this remote post. All the emotions and thoughts that a real Drenari agent would have in this situation. The security officer found nothing wrong because there was nothing wrong to find. Kira had become her cover identity so completely that even she could not distinguish between the false persona and her real self in that moment. "Proceed," the officer said, stepping aside. "Quartermaster building is the third structure on your left." Kira walked past him without any sign of relief or satisfaction. Those emotions would have been out of character for her cover identity. She maintained the performance perfectly as she and Omar entered the post and began their assigned tasks. Meanwhile, Yuki and Chen had successfully bypassed the automated defenses. They accessed the data systems through a maintenance panel that had not been properly secured. Within minutes, they were downloading everything the post had collected about human military operations. The problems began when a routine communication check revealed that the real supply shuttle had been delayed by engine problems and was still 3 days away from arrival. The security officer who had cleared Kira immediately understood that something was wrong. Alarms began sounding throughout the post. Kira received the alert through her concealed communication device. She had planned for this contingency, but the plan was dangerous and required perfect execution. "Omar, follow my lead exactly," she said quietly in their private language. She walked calmly toward the security station where the officers were gathering to respond to the alert. When she arrived, she presented herself not as someone trying to hide, but as someone who had been discovered and was now revealing her true purpose. "I am not here to steal your intelligence," she told the assembled security officers. "I am here to offer you better intelligence. Intelligence about human military operations that your superiors will pay generously for." The officers hesitated. This was unexpected. Intruders did not normally offer to betray their own people. The senior officer, the one who had initially cleared her arrival, studied her with renewed telepathic attention. "You are lying," he said. "I am telling partial truth," Kira corrected. "I am an intelligence operative, but not a Drenari one. I work for the highest bidder. Currently, my employment situation is complicated. I am willing to negotiate new arrangements." She let him see thoughts that supported this story. Memories of human intelligence operations that she had actually participated in during training. Emotions of greed and self-interest that were universally understood across species. Calculations about how much money different information might be worth. The security officers saw what she wanted him to see. He saw a human trader offering valuable information in exchange for payment and protection. He did not see the distraction that was allowing Yuki and Chen to complete their download and prepare for extraction. "This is above my authorization," the officer said finally. "I will contact my superiors for guidance." "Of course," Kira said. "I expected nothing less. But perhaps we could continue this discussion in a more comfortable location while we wait for their response." The discussion lasted 47 minutes. During that time, Kira provided carefully selected true information that supported her cover as a traitor, while revealing nothing that would genuinely damage human security. She allowed the Drenari to believe they were learning valuable secrets while she actually fed them a combination of outdated intelligence and subtle misinformation. When Yuki confirmed that the download was complete and the team was ready for extraction, Kira made her move. She had been waiting for the security officers to relax, to believe they had the situation under control. The moment they lowered their guard, she acted. The combat techniques she used were designed specifically for fighting telepaths. Quick movements that relied on muscle memory, rather than conscious thought. Strikes to nerve clusters that disrupted telepathic concentration. Within seconds, 3 security officers were unconscious on the floor. She ran. Omar was already ahead of her, following the extraction route they had memorized during planning. Alarms were sounding throughout the post. Armed guards were converging on their position, but Kira had planned for this too. Yuki had planted charges during her infiltration of the data systems. They detonated in sequence, creating a series of controlled explosions that blocked pursuit corridors and disabled key defense systems. The path to the extraction point was clear. Their shuttle lifted off just as Drenari reinforcements arrived from the garrison barracks. Energy weapons fire scored the hull, but the shielding held. Within minutes, they were in open space. accelerating toward the jump point that would take them back to human territory. The mission was complete. They had obtained the intelligence they sought and escaped without revealing human involvement. The Drenari would assume that mercenaries had conducted the raid, which would support Kira's cover story and create confusion about what had actually happened. Commander Tanaka reviewed the mission results 3 days later. She watched the recordings from their equipment, analyzed their tactical decisions, and evaluated their performance against Shadow Corps standards. "You improvised effectively under pressure," she told Kira. "The decision to pose as a traitor rather than attempting escape was creative and successful. But it was also risky. If the Drenari had not believed your story, the entire mission could have failed." "The risk was calculated," Kira said. "Based on my understanding of Drenari psychology and the specific circumstances we encountered, the probability of success was higher than attempting a standard escape." Tanaka nodded slowly. "You see patterns that others miss. You find solutions that seem impossible until you explain them. This is why you were recruited. This is why you will be valuable to the Shadow Corps." She paused, her expression becoming more serious. "But there is something you must understand. The Shadow Corps operates in darkness. We do things that cannot be acknowledged. We sacrifice for causes that will never recognize our contribution. The people you will encounter in your missions will not know your name, and if they did, they would not thank you. Are you prepared for this?" Kira considered the question carefully. She thought about her years at the academy, being ignored and overlooked while she developed skills that nobody recognized. She thought about the satisfaction she had found in her own knowledge of her abilities, separate from external validation. She thought about the evaluation, when she had finally been seen, and the strange discomfort that recognition had brought. "I am prepared," she said. "Recognition was never why I did this. I did this because I could. Because I saw things that needed to be done and found ways to do them. The Shadow Corps gives me the opportunity to do more of that. The recognition, or lack of it, is not important." Tanaka smiled for the first time since Kira had arrived at the training facility. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was genuine. "Good," she said, "because your next mission will test that commitment." The Drenari hierarchy has traced the attack on their intelligence post. They do not know specifically who was responsible, but they have narrowed the possibilities. Their investigation is getting too close to information that could compromise future Shadow Corps operations. "You are going to stop them." She handed Kira a datapad containing the mission briefing. The target was a Drenari investigation team operating from a ship in contested space. The objective was to eliminate the team and destroy all evidence of their findings. The method was left to Kira's discretion. "This will be your first solo mission," Tanaka said. "No backup, no extraction support. You succeed or you fail on your own abilities. Do you understand?" Kira understood. She had spent her entire life preparing for moments exactly like this. Moments when everything depended on her and her alone. Moments when there was no one to help her and no one to blame if she failed. She had been ignored at the academy. She had been underestimated by everyone who looked at her and saw only a small human girl with no connections and no advantages. They had all been wrong about her. Now she would prove just how wrong they had been. "I understand," she said. "I will complete the mission." She spent the next week preparing. She studied the Drenari investigation team, learning everything the Shadow Corps knew about their members, their methods, and their patterns. She developed 3 different approaches to the mission, each with its own advantages and risks. She trained in specific techniques she would need, practicing until her body could execute them without conscious thought. On the day she departed for the mission, Commander Tanaka met her at the shuttle bay. "One thing I did not tell you during your briefing," Tanaka said. "The leader of the investigation team is named Korvax. He is one of the most decorated intelligence officers in the Drenari hierarchy. He has never failed to complete an investigation. He has personally destroyed the careers and lives of dozens of operatives from various species who underestimated him." Kira absorbed this information without reaction. It did not change her plans. Korvax being skilled only meant that her margin for error was smaller. She would simply have to be more precise. "There is more," Tanaka continued. "Korvax has expressed particular interest in the human operative who infiltrated the intelligence post. He believes that identifying this person will lead him to the heart of human covert operations. He is correct. If he captures you, or if he obtains any evidence linking you to the Shadow Corps, the consequences will be severe. I understand the stakes, Kira said. I will not fail. Tanaka studied her for a long moment. Whatever she saw in Kira's eyes seemed to satisfy her. I believe you, she said. Go, complete your mission. Become what the Shadow Corps needs you to be. Kira boarded the shuttle and did not look back. She had a mission to complete. She had an enemy to defeat. She had a destiny to fulfill. The galaxy had ignored her for too long. Now it would learn to fear her name, even if that name was never spoken aloud. The Drenari investigation ship was called the Silent Truth. It was a medium-sized vessel equipped with the most advanced scanning and analysis technology the hierarchy could produce. Its crew of 12 included specialists in forensic evidence analysis, communication, decryption, and psychological profiling. At their center was Korvax, whose reputation for relentless investigation had earned him both respect and fear throughout Drenari society. Kira observed the ship from her concealed position aboard a commercial transport traveling through the same sector. She had spent 3 days tracking the Silent Truth's movements, learning its patrol patterns and security protocols. The ship operated with professional discipline, conducting regular sensor sweeps and maintaining constant communication with Drenari Command. Direct approach would be detected immediately. Subtlety was required. She developed her plan during the long hours of observation. The Silent Truth made periodic stops at neutral stations to resupply and gather information from local contacts. During these stops, crew members would leave the ship in small groups, creating opportunities for infiltration. But Korvax himself rarely left the vessel. He preferred to receive reports from his team rather than exposing himself to potential threats. Kira realized that she would need to bring Korvax to her rather than going to him. She would need to create a situation that forced him to take action personally. She would need to become something he could not ignore. The opportunity came when the Silent Truth stopped at Station Varix, a trading post on the edge of contested space. Kira had arrived 2 days earlier, establishing herself as a trader in information and rare goods. She had created a reputation among the station's underworld contacts as someone who knew things that others did not want known. When the Drenari investigation team began their usual inquiries at the station, they learned about the human trader who seemed to know too much. They heard rumors that she had information about the attack on the intelligence post. They heard that she was willing to sell this information to the highest bidder. Korvax received these reports and recognized the pattern immediately. It was too convenient, too obviously a trap. But it was also too promising to ignore. If this human trader actually did have information about the attack, she might be connected to the operatives responsible. Even if it was a trap, Korvax was confident in his ability to turn any situation to his advantage. He decided to meet with her personally. This was exactly what Kira had planned. They met in a private room at one of the station's gambling establishments. Korvax arrived with 2 bodyguards, their telepathic abilities providing constant surveillance of the surrounding area. Kira sat alone at a small table, a drink in front of her that she had not touched. You are the trader who claims to have information about recent attacks on Drenari installations, Korvax said without preamble. He did not sit down. His black eyes studied her with an intensity that she had not experienced even from the most skilled telepath she had encountered. I have information about many things, Kira said. Whether any of it interests you depends on what you are willing to pay. Korvax made a small gesture, and his bodyguards began scanning the room more intensively. They were searching for hidden weapons, concealed surveillance devices, anything that might indicate a trap. They found nothing because Kira had nothing to hide. Her weapons were in her mind and in her preparation, not in physical objects that could be detected. You are human, Korvax said. The operative who attacked our intelligence post was also human. This seems like more than coincidence. Humans are everywhere in this sector, Kira replied. We are like insects, spreading into every corner where profit can be found. Is it surprising that multiple humans might be involved in activities that interest the Drenari hierarchy? Do not play games with me, Korvax said. His telepathic presence pressed against her mind, searching for signs of deception. I know a trap when I see one. The question is whether the information you offer is valuable enough to justify engaging with your trap. Kira smiled. She had not expected him to be foolish enough to miss the obvious signs. She had counted on his confidence in his own abilities, his belief that he could control any situation. Then let us stop pretending, she said. You know this is a trap. I know that you know. The question is whether you are brave enough to spring it. She released the mental barriers she had been maintaining. She let Korvax see her true identity, or at least a version of it that served her purposes. She let him see that she was the operative who had attacked the intelligence post. She let him see that she had been sent to eliminate his investigation. She let him see that she was confident she would succeed. Korvax's eyes widened slightly. It was the only sign of surprise he showed, and it lasted less than a second before his composure returned. Remarkable, he said. You reveal yourself knowing that I could have you arrested immediately. You show me your purpose, knowing that it gives me the advantage. Either you are incredibly foolish, or you believe you have capabilities I cannot counter. The second option, Kira said. Your investigation has gotten too close to operations that must remain hidden. You have been marked for elimination. How that elimination occurs is flexible. You could die here, in this room, in the next few minutes. Or you could die later, in a location and manner of my choosing. The only thing that is not flexible is the outcome. The bodyguards moved toward her, their telepathic abilities now focused on controlling her mind rather than merely scanning it. Kira felt their combined power pressing against her consciousness, attempting to paralyze her nervous system, to force her into submission. She had prepared for this. During her training with the Shadow Corps, she had developed mental techniques that went far beyond anything she had used against Thaxos or the Drenari, who had attacked her at the academy. She had created compartments in her mind that could operate independently, each one capable of continuing her mission even if others were compromised. She had built walls within walls, defenses that could be sacrificed strategically while protecting her core functions. The bodyguard's telepathic assault hit her outer defenses and began breaking through. Kira let them advance, drawing them deeper into her mental labyrinth. They thought they were making progress. They thought they were close to controlling her. They were wrong. When they had committed fully to their attack, Kira activated the trap she had prepared in her own mind. It was a technique that Commander Tanaka had warned her against using. A last resort that could cause permanent damage to her own consciousness if it failed. But Kira had modified the technique, refined it, made it her own. The mental backlash hit both bodyguards simultaneously. It was not an attack but a reflection, turning their own telepathic power against them. The force they had directed at Kira rebounded through their neural pathways, overwhelming their defenses and causing immediate unconsciousness. They collapsed to the floor without making a sound. Korvax stood alone, facing Kira across the table. Impressive, he said. His voice remained calm despite what he had just witnessed. You have eliminated my bodyguards, but do not assume that means you have eliminated my capabilities. He attacked with telepathic force that dwarfed anything his bodyguards had produced. This was not the probing examination he had used earlier. This was full mental assault, designed to destroy her consciousness completely. Kira had expected this. She had prepared for it. But the reality of facing Korvax's full power was different from any simulation or training exercise. She felt her outer defenses crumbling. She felt her compartmentalized protections failing one by one. She felt him getting closer to her core consciousness with every passing moment. She needed to end this quickly, before he broke through her final barriers. Kira reached across the table and grabbed Korvax's wrist. Physical contact enhanced telepathic connections, working both ways. She felt his mind more clearly now, and he felt hers, but she had one advantage that he did not expect. She let him in. She opened her mind completely, dropping all defenses, allowing him full access to everything she was and everything she knew. It was suicide for any normal operative. Complete mental exposure meant complete vulnerability. Korvax could destroy her consciousness in moments if she allowed him access, but Kira was not a normal operative. Her mind was not a simple structure that could be destroyed through conventional telepathic attack. Her mind was a weapon, designed and refined through years of preparation for exactly this moment. When Korvax entered her consciousness expecting victory, he instead found himself trapped. The maze she had created was not defensive but offensive. Every path he took led him deeper into her mental architecture. Every attempt to withdraw was blocked by structures that had not existed moments before. He had entered her mind expecting to destroy it. Instead, he had walked into a prison of her creation. What is this? He demanded. His physical voice was strained now, his concentration divided between the telepathic struggle and maintaining his body's functions. "This is the trap you were brave enough to spring," Kira said. "You cannot escape. You cannot call for help. You cannot even release your hold on my mind without suffering permanent damage to your own consciousness. You are trapped exactly where I need you." Korvax struggled against her mental architecture, his considerable telepathic power seeking any weakness he could exploit. He found none. Kira had designed her mental prison specifically for someone with his abilities. Every defense he tried to breach had been constructed with his patterns in mind. Every escape route he sought had been closed before he even knew it existed. "What do you want?" he finally asked. His voice had lost some of its confidence. For the first time in his long career, Korvax faced an opponent he could not outthink or overpower. "I want you to understand something," Kira said. "I was sent here to eliminate your investigation. My orders were to kill you and destroy your team. I could do that now. I could collapse this mental structure and take your consciousness with it. Your physical body would survive, but you would be gone, replaced by an empty shell that remembers nothing and can do nothing." She let him feel the truth of her words. She let him see that she was capable of exactly what she described. "But I am offering you a different option," she continued. "You can end your investigation. You can report to your superiors that the trail has gone cold, that the operatives responsible for the attack cannot be identified. You can return to the Drenary hierarchy and continue your career, never speaking of what happened here today." "You expect me to lie to my superiors?" Korvax asked. "To betray my duty to the hierarchy?" "I expect you to survive," Kira said. "I expect you to recognize that continuing this investigation will lead only to your destruction, not because I will kill you, but because the forces I represent will not allow you to succeed. Others will come after me, if I fail. Others with different methods, perhaps less willing to offer you the choice I am offering now." Korvax was silent for a long moment. His mind continued to probe her mental architecture, searching for weaknesses, analyzing her capabilities, calculating probabilities of success for various courses of action. Kira let him search. She was confident he would find no escape. "You are Shadow Corps," he finally said. "The human covert operations unit that officially does not exist. We have suspected your existence for decades, but we have never confirmed it until now." "Now you have confirmed it," Kira agreed. "The question is what you will do with that confirmation. If I report what I have learned, my superiors will order expanded investigation. They will dedicate resources to identifying Shadow Corps operatives and understanding your methods. The information will be valuable, and you will be dead before you can deliver it," Kira said. "The moment you leave this room intending to report, I will know. I will not be the one to kill you. I will already be gone, but others will ensure that your knowledge dies with you. Is your duty to the hierarchy worth your life?" This was the crucial moment. Kira watched Korvax's mental processes as he weighed his options. She saw his loyalty to the Drenary hierarchy, deep and genuine. She saw his fear of death, equally deep, equally genuine. She saw his pride in his abilities, wounded by his failure to overcome her. And she saw something else. She saw his curiosity about her, about the human who had accomplished what no one had accomplished before. She saw his respect for her capabilities, grudging but real. "If I agree to your terms," he said slowly, "what guarantees do I have that you will honor them?" "None," Kira admitted. "But I will tell you something that might influence your decision. I did not want to kill you. I was ordered to eliminate your investigation, and killing you was the expected method. But when I studied your record, I found something interesting. You have never killed an innocent person in pursuit of your investigations. You have never used your power to destroy those who did not deserve destruction. You are dangerous because you are skilled, not because you are cruel." She paused, allowing him to process her words. "I find that worthy of respect." She continued. "In a galaxy filled with people who abuse their power, you have used yours responsibly. Killing you would eliminate a threat, but it would also remove something valuable from the universe. I would prefer not to do that if another option exists." Korvax studied her through their mental connection. He searched for signs that she was lying, that this was manipulation designed to lower his guard. He found none. because she was telling the truth. "You are an unusual operative," he said. "Most covert agents would not care about such things. Most would simply complete their mission by whatever means necessary. Most covert agents did not spend 3 years being ignored at the Galactic Military Academy." Kira replied, "I learned during those years that being overlooked can be a gift. I also learned that power without principle becomes tyranny. I will do what is necessary to protect my people and complete my missions. But I will not become something I would be ashamed of." The connection between their minds remained active, each of them feeling the truth of the other's thoughts. It was an intimacy that neither of them had expected, a moment of genuine understanding between enemies who could have destroyed each other. "I will end my investigation," Korvax finally said. "I will report that the trail has gone cold, as you suggested. But I want you to understand something in return. This is not surrender. This is not fear. This is recognition that some enemies are more valuable alive than dead. The Drenari hierarchy may benefit more from your continued existence than from the information I could provide about you." Kira understood what he was saying. He was choosing to let her live not because he feared her, but because he believed she might become useful to his people in the future. It was a calculation, cold and logical, exactly what she would expect from a Drenari intelligence officer. "Then we have an agreement," she said. "I will release you now. Your bodyguards will wake in approximately 1 hour with no memory of what happened here. You will tell them that our meeting was unproductive and that you found no useful information." She began the process of withdrawing from their mental connection, carefully dismantling the prison she had created without causing permanent damage to either of them. It was delicate work, requiring precision and concentration. As the connection faded, Korvax spoke one more time. "What is your name? I would like to know who defeated me today." Kira considered the question. Her training demanded that she maintain operational security at all times. Revealing her identity served no tactical purpose and created unnecessary risk. But something about this encounter felt different. Something about Korvax's recognition of her capabilities, his respect for what she had accomplished, appealed to a part of her that she usually kept hidden. "Kira Vance," she said, "remember it. We may meet again." She completed the disconnection and released his wrist. Korvax stood motionless for a moment, adjusting to the sudden absence of their mental link. Then he looked at her with eyes that held new information, new understanding. "I will remember," he said. "Kira Vance, the human who trapped me in my own mind. I suspect this is not the last time your name will cause problems for the Drenari hierarchy." He turned and walked toward the door, stepping carefully over his unconscious bodyguards. At the threshold, he paused. "Your fighting techniques against telepaths," he said. "Where did you learn them?" "I have never encountered anything like what you did today. I created them," Kira said. "Based on theoretical principles and extensive practice. The Academy did not teach me what I needed to know, so I taught myself." Korvax nodded slowly. "Self-taught. Remarkable. If our peoples were not enemies, I would recommend you for advanced study at the Hierarchy's Academy of Mental Arts. Your talent is exceptional." He left without waiting for a response. Kira remained seated at the table, processing what had happened. She had completed her mission without killing anyone. She had neutralized the investigation threat and potentially created a contact within Drenari intelligence who might prove useful in the future. Commander Tanaka would be pleased, or at least as pleased as she ever showed. But something else occupied Kira's thoughts. During their mental connection, she had seen parts of Korvax's mind that he had not intended to show her. She had seen his fears and hopes, his disappointments and dreams. She had seen a person, complex and contradictory, struggling to serve his people while maintaining his own principles. She had seen someone not so different from herself. The galaxy was vast and filled with enemies. War between species was constant, driven by resources and territory and ancient grievances that most people no longer remembered. The Shadow Corps existed to fight this war in the darkness, to do things that could not be acknowledged and sacrifice in ways that would never be recognized. But in that moment, connecting with an enemy who had become something more than an enemy, Kira wondered if there was another way, if understanding between peoples was possible, even between peoples who had been fighting for centuries. If the skills she had developed for war could someday be used for something else. These were dangerous thoughts for a Shadow Corps operative. They suggested attachments and hopes that could compromise future missions. Kira filed them away in a protected corner of her mind and prepared to leave the station. Her shuttle departed Station Varix 2 hours later, carrying her toward the rendezvous point where she would be extracted and returned to Shadow Corps headquarters. The mission report she composed during the journey was factual and complete, describing her actions and their results without editorializing. Commander Tanaka reviewed the report upon her return. Her expression revealed nothing as she read through the details of Kira's encounter with Korvax. "You chose not to kill him," Tanaka said when she finished reading. "The mission objective was to eliminate the investigation threat," Kira replied. "That objective was achieved without termination. Korvax has agreed to report that the investigation failed. His superiors will redirect resources elsewhere. And you trust his word? I trust his calculation. He determined that I represent more potential value alive than dead. He will honor our agreement because doing so serves his long-term interests." Tanaka set down the report and studied Kira with an intensity that reminded her of Korvax's examination. "You made contact with one of the most dangerous intelligence operatives in the Drenari hierarchy and convinced him to abandon his mission through negotiation rather than force. You revealed your name and your organizational affiliation to an enemy. You created a potential relationship that could prove either useful or catastrophic in the future." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "This is not how Shadow Corps operatives typically conduct missions." "No," Kira agreed. "It is not. And yet the mission succeeded. The threat was eliminated. Our operations remain secure." Tanaka leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. "Tell me something, Operative Vance. Do you believe that what you did was correct?" Kira considered the question carefully. She had replayed the encounter with Korvax countless times during her journey back to headquarters. She had analyzed every decision, every word, every moment of their mental connection. She had identified weaknesses in her approach and opportunities she had missed. "I believe it was effective," she said. "Whether it was correct depends on what standards we use to judge it. The standards of the Shadow Corps are mission success and operational security. By those standards, your mission was successful. But you took risks that were not necessary. You revealed information that could compromise future operations. You showed mercy to an enemy who may eventually use what he learned against us." "I am aware of those risks," Kira said. "I judged that the potential benefits outweighed them." "And what potential benefits did you identify?" This was the question Kira had been preparing to answer since she left Station Varix. "Korvax is not just an intelligence officer. He is a bridge between the military and political wings of the Drenari hierarchy. He has influence that extends beyond his official position. By allowing him to live and creating a connection based on mutual respect, I have established a potential channel for future communication. If circumstances change, if we ever need to negotiate with the Drenari rather than fight them, Korvax could be useful." Tanaka remained silent for a long moment, her eyes never leaving Kira's face. "You are thinking strategically," she finally said. "Not just about immediate mission objectives, but about long-term possibilities. This is unusual for an operative at your experience level." "I have had time to think," Kira said. 3 years at the academy, being ignored, watching others receive opportunities that I was denied. I learned to plan for futures that others could not see. I learned to build toward goals that seemed impossible. This is simply an extension of what I have always done." Tanaka nodded slowly, something like approval flickering in her eyes. "The Shadow Corps is not just a military organization," she said. "We are instruments of human survival. Sometimes survival requires violence. Sometimes it requires subtlety. And sometimes it requires vision that extends beyond the current conflict to possibilities that have not yet emerged." She stood and walked to the window of her office, looking out at the stars visible beyond the asteroid's thin atmosphere. "Your mission report will be classified at the highest levels. No one outside this room will know the details of your encounter with Korvax. But I will remember. And when the time comes to use the connection you have created, I will know who to call." Kira understood that she had passed a test she had not known she was taking. Tanaka had been evaluating not just her mission performance but her potential for larger responsibilities. The results seemed to be positive. "There is one more thing," Tanaka said, turning back to face her. "Your name has begun to circulate in certain circles. Not officially, of course. The Shadow Corps does not officially exist, and neither do you. But whispers have spread through intelligence networks across multiple species. The human operative who defeated Korvax, the agent who neutralized a Drenari investigation without killing anyone. People are asking questions. What kind of questions? Questions about who you are and what you can do. Questions about whether you represent a new kind of threat or a new kind of opportunity. Tanaka's expression hardened. Some of those questions come from people who wish you harm. The Drenari families connected to Thaxos have not forgotten your humiliation of him at the Academy. They have added the Korvax incident to their grievances. You have enemies now, Operative Vance. Powerful enemies who will not stop until you are destroyed. This information did not surprise Kira. She had known since leaving the Academy that her actions would have consequences. She had accepted that knowledge and continued anyway. I have had enemies before, she said. I survived. These enemies are different. They have resources and influence that exceed anything you have previously faced. They will not confront you directly. They will strike at everything you care about, everyone you have ever known. Your parents on Mars in Station 12. Your teammates from the Academy evaluation. Anyone who can be connected to you becomes a potential target. Kira felt a cold knot form in her stomach. Her parents, Chis, Devon, Bick, people who had done nothing wrong except know her. What can be done to protect them? She asked. The Shadow Corps has already taken precautions. Your parents have been relocated to a secure facility under assumed names. Your former teammates have been warned and offered protection, but these measures are not permanent solutions. As long as your enemies continue their pursuit, the people you care about will be at risk. Then my enemies need to stop pursuing, Kira said. Her voice was quiet but carried an edge that had not been there before. How do I make that happen? Tanaka returned to her desk and pulled up a holographic display showing a complex network of connections between individuals and organizations. The families targeting you are part of a larger faction within the Drenari hierarchy. They oppose the current leadership and seek to increase their own power through military adventurism. Your embarrassment of Thaxos was not just personal. It was political. It weakened their faction's reputation at a critical moment. So this is about more than revenge. It is about power, as most things are. The faction that wants you destroyed is also pushing for expanded conflict with human space. They believe that war would provide opportunities for advancement that peaceful relations do not offer. Your continued existence is a symbol of human capability that undermines their narrative. Kira studied the network display, identifying patterns and connections that others might miss. She saw the relationships between family groups, the financial ties that bound them together, the political alliances that gave them influence. She saw weaknesses and opportunities. If this faction were discredited or dismantled, she said slowly, the threat to me and the people I care about would be reduced. Significantly reduced, Tanaka agreed. The current Drenari leadership has no interest in expanded conflict with humanity. They prefer the status quo, which provides stability and predictable profits. If the militant faction lost influence, the leadership would not expend resources pursuing vengeance against a single human operative. Then dismantling the faction becomes my objective. Tanaka's eyes narrowed slightly. That is a significant objective for a single operative. The faction includes some of the most powerful families in the Drenari hierarchy. They have intelligence networks, military resources, political connections. Taking them down would require years of work and considerable risk. I have time, Kira said. And I have already demonstrated that I can handle risk. You would be operating largely alone. The Shadow Corps cannot commit resources to a personal vendetta, even one with strategic benefits. I understand. Tanaka was silent for a moment, studying Kira with an expression that combined assessment and something that might have been respect. Very well, she said finally. I will provide you with the intelligence we have gathered on the faction's operations. What you do with that intelligence is your responsibility. If you succeed, the Shadow Corps will benefit from the reduction in Drenari militant influence. If you fail, we will deny any knowledge of your activities. That seems fair, Kira said. The intelligence package arrived at her quarters that evening. It contained decades of data on the militant faction's activities, leadership structures, financial flows, and political relationships. It would take months just to analyze it properly. Kira began that night. her mind sorting through patterns and connections while her body rested. She identified the key nodes in the faction's network, the individuals and institutions that held everything together. She mapped the dependencies and vulnerabilities that could be exploited, and she began to plan. The campaign against the militant faction lasted 3 years. It was conducted entirely in shadows, through methods that left no traces and achieved results that could not be attributed to any single source. Businesses failed due to seemingly natural market forces. Political alliances fractured over manufactured scandals. Key leaders experienced misfortunes that appeared accidental but followed suspiciously convenient patterns. Kira operated throughout human and Drenari space, adopting dozens of different identities and personas. She became a financial consultant who advised faction-affiliated businesses into catastrophic investments. She became a journalist who uncovered embarrassing secrets about faction leaders. She became a social contact who planted seeds of distrust between allied families. And occasionally, when no other option existed, she became something more direct. 3 faction leaders died during her campaign. Each death was classified as accident or natural causes. No investigation ever connected them to external action. Kira made sure of that. The Shadow Corps continued to assign her other missions during this time. She balanced her personal campaign against the faction with her official responsibilities, never allowing one to compromise the other. Her reputation grew within the organization, and her methods were studied by newer operatives who sought to learn from her success. The turning point came when she discovered that the faction was planning a false flag operation. They intended to stage an attack on Drenari civilian targets and blame it on human forces. The resulting public outrage would provide justification for the military escalation they had long sought. Kira could not allow this to happen. The consequences would extend far beyond her personal situation. War between humans and Drenari would cost millions of lives and destabilize the entire region of the galaxy. She had 14 days to stop the operation. The attack was planned to occur during a major festival on one of the Drenari core worlds. Thousands of civilians would gather in central squares to celebrate a traditional holiday. The faction planned to detonate explosive devices in 3 locations simultaneously, then release evidence supposedly linking the attack to human special operations. Kira identified the faction operatives responsible for placing the devices. She tracked them through their preparations, learning their routes, schedules, and security protocols. She developed a plan to intercept and neutralize them before they could complete their mission. But as she prepared for action, she realized that simple prevention was not enough. The faction could simply plan another attack after this one failed. They had resources and patience. As long as they remained committed to their goal of provoking war, the threat would continue. She needed to end the faction entirely. The solution came to her during a sleepless night of planning. The faction's leadership would gather for a private meeting to coordinate the final stages of their operation. If that meeting were exposed, if the evidence of their planning were delivered to the Drenari government, the consequences would be severe. Conspiracy to attack their own people was treason of the highest order. Even the most powerful families could not survive such accusations. Kira modified her plan. She would not simply prevent the attack. She would document the conspiracy and ensure that the evidence reached the right hands. The meeting took place in a secure facility on a minor moon owned by one of the faction families. Security was extreme. Telepathic screening was mandatory for all attendees. Surveillance systems covered every approach. It seemed impossible to infiltrate. Kira found a way. She had spent years developing relationships with individuals throughout Drenari society. One of those relationships was with a low-ranking member of a faction-affiliated family, a young woman named Saren who had grown disillusioned with her family's politics. Saren had access to the meeting facility as part of her family's domestic staff. She agreed to help Kira in exchange for protection and a new identity in human space. On the day of the meeting, Saren placed a microscopic recording device in the conference room where faction leaders would gather. The device was designed by Shadow Corps engineers specifically for this mission, capable of storing hours of high-quality audio and video in a package smaller than a grain of sand. Kira waited in a concealed position 3 kilometers from the facility, monitoring the device's transmissions through an encrypted channel. She heard faction leaders discuss their plans in detail. She heard them express contempt for Drenari civilians who would die in their operation. She heard them celebrate the war they believed their actions would create. The recording captured everything. When the meeting ended, Saren retrieved the device and passed it to a contact who delivered it to Kira. Within hours, the evidence was in the hands of the Drenari Security Council. The arrests began before dawn the next day. Faction leaders were pulled from their homes and brought before tribunals. The evidence was irrefutable. Confessions followed quickly as lower-ranking conspirators sought to save themselves by implicating their superiors. Within a week, the militant faction had effectively ceased to exist. Its leaders faced execution or life imprisonment. Its resources were seized by the government. Its political allies scrambled to distance themselves from the conspiracy. The false flag attack never occurred. The war the faction had sought to create never happened. And the threat to Kira and the people she cared about was finally ended. News of the faction's destruction spread throughout the galaxy. The official story attributed the discovery to Drenari internal security. No mention was made of human involvement. No one knew that a single operative had orchestrated the faction's downfall over 3 years of patient, careful work, except Korvax. He contacted Kira through a secure channel 6 months after the faction's collapse. The message was brief and carefully worded. I know what you did. I know how you did it. I have told no one, and I never will. What you accomplished was remarkable. Perhaps, when this is over, there will be opportunities for people like us to build something other than conflict. Until then, be well. Kira read the message several times before deleting it. Korvax had kept his word about their encounter on Station Varix. He had apparently also kept track of her activities since then. His message suggested possibilities that she had wondered about since their first meeting. Perhaps understanding between peoples was possible. Perhaps the skills she had developed for war could someday be used for something else. But for now, she had other responsibilities. Commander Tanaka had assigned her to a new mission, one that would take her to the edge of explored space. The Shadow Corps needed her capabilities, and she would provide them. She thought about her journey as she prepared for departure, the academy that had ignored her, the evaluation that had changed everything, the training that had transformed her capabilities, the missions that had tested her limits, the campaign that had destroyed her enemies. She had become something that no one had predicted. The small girl from Mars in Station 12, the cadet that instructors walked past without seeing, had grown into an operative whose name was whispered in intelligence circles across the galaxy. Her battle name, as the reports called it, had gone viral among those who knew of such things. Not her real name, but a designation that had emerged from her activities. The ghost who speaks, the human who could defeat telepaths on their own ground, the operative who appeared from nowhere and vanished without trace. The academy had ignored her. Now everyone who mattered feared her. It was strange, she reflected, how things worked out. She had never sought fame or recognition. She had only wanted to prove that she was capable of what she believed herself capable of. The recognition had come anyway. In the shadows and whispers where people like her existed, her parents were safe now, returned to their normal lives with new identities and protections that would keep them from ever being threatened again. Her former teammates from the academy had gone on to successful careers, and she occasionally monitored their progress from a distance. They did not know what she had done to protect them. They did not need to know. This was the life of a Shadow Corps operative. Success measured in threats eliminated and disasters prevented. Recognition from those who understood what her work accomplished. Anonymity from everyone else. Kira accepted it. She had accepted it from the moment she signed Admiral Chenshu's offer. She had known what she was choosing and what she was giving up, but sometimes, in quiet moments between missions, she wondered what else was possible. She wondered about the connection she had felt with Korvax, the understanding that had passed between them. She wondered if there were others, among all the species of the galaxy, who might also see beyond the conflicts that divided their peoples. Those were questions for another time. For now, she had a mission to complete. The shuttle launched from the asteroid facility, carrying her toward the unknown edge of space. Behind her lay the galaxy she had helped protect, the people she had saved, the enemies she had destroyed. Ahead of her lay whatever challenges the universe decided to present. Kira Vance, the girl who had been ignored at the academy, was ready for all of them, and the galaxy, whether it knew her name or not, was better for her existence. Some heroes operated in the light, celebrated by those they protected. Others worked in darkness, their sacrifices unknown and unappreciated. Kira had made her choice. She had chosen the shadows, and in those shadows, she had become something extraordinary. The end of one story, the beginning of countless others. The ghost who speaks continued her work, feared by enemies and unknown to those she defended, exactly as she had always intended.